welcome to the live. As you guys saw on the post, we are going to be discussing COVID-19 and the effects it is having on the community from many different angles. So it's a few of us here, myself, Anthony Jones, and the infamous Vaughn Willis. Yay! All right, y'all. So we're just going to hop right on in and just kind of talk about COVID-19, how we feeling, what it's been doing to our community, what it's been doing to us individually. So let's just kind of jump right into it, you guys. So how are you, let's get a temperature gauge from a 1 to 10. How are you guys feeling? How are you doing as an effect of COVID-19?
I hate this shit.
You hate it. Yeah.
I hate. I mean, there's what's there to love? Ain't nothing to love about it except for, seeing people actually be people.
Yeah.
I've been seeing a lot of people jogging and spending time with their families.
Yeah.
Going out a lot more. We're supposed to be staying in.
Staying in the house,
Yeah.
right?
I just be sitting in the grass minding my own business, and it'd be like whole picnics being had.
Whole picnics.
Tempe Town Lake is just bustling with activity, but for the most part, people do seem to be like distancing themselves from one another, like mostly just jogging and stuff like that. So
Yeah, one thing I've been realizing is how much this quarantine is actually keeping us closer together, and probably not as like friends, but maybe more as like family members, because a lot of family are like out doing stuff a lot more than what they probably would be doing. Like in my neighborhood, I'm seeing people who's out there playing kickball, playing baseball. Like I'm seeing fathers playing catch with their son now.
Like we're on vacation or something.
Right.
Yeah, it does make me wonder though, like for those kids who don't have fathers,
Like
and
me.
for those. Dang. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like there's a lot of, especially, I remember when I used to stay at the townhouses over on Broadway and 44th Street, and everybody knows it was a high rate of crime over there. It was a lot of illegal activity that used to go on over there and whatnot. But there was a high amount of poverty over there, and that was like the driving force behind everything else that was going on. So it just, a lot of those kids, even back then before COVID, were going hungry. I would be seeing some kids like going to the store and like distracting the cashier while somebody else go and snag a bag of chips or some drinks, and people wanted to be like, oh, them some badass kids, but really it was just they was in survival mode. A lot of people don't really realize like how much child hunger impacts the African American community. So when you have a situation like COVID, where people can't go to work, and especially like black people, because there's a lot of black people who have jobs that require them to be like hands-on with people. You know what I'm saying? Like maybe there are a lot of waitresses, maybe there are a lot of service workers where they're like just doing jobs that require them to be face to face with people and interactive with people, and so people have had to make hard choices. Like, do I risk going to work and bringing this home to my kids? But if I don't go to work, you talk about people who was already living hand to mouth.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so, like, and for a lot of kids, that breakfast you get at school and that lunch you get at school might be the only meals you get that day. So now that school is out, it definitely makes me wonder about the other side of that coin, because there's a lot of people whose families, they were just financially prepared for something like this.
Right.
And then, but I fear that there's a lot of black families where they just weren't financially prepared.
Right. And I'm actually glad you brought up black families, because that brings us to our first topic in our whole coronavirus umbrella, is how this is actually affecting black people.
Yeah.
Just as a whole. We're noticing that a lot more of our culture is the ones that are like actually dying from it. At first it was looked at as the boomer virus, the one that like took out older folks, but then now it's starting to almost seem like it's transitioning to affecting black people in their older age. I'm not really sure if it's affecting black people in all their ages. Is that something that you are?
Well, I mean, I'm seeing, from what I've been seeing, it seems to be hitting. I mean, of course, the initial reports was that it's hitting elderly people the hardest. It's hitting people with pre-existing conditions the hardest.
People with like asthma and stuff.
Yeah.
Yep.
But think about it. Like when you talk about pre-existing conditions, you know, like we talked about earlier, diabetes being an autoimmune disease. How many, like straight up, how many of us know somebody that have diabetes, like in our immediate
Real
family?
talk. Yeah.
Pretty much all the elders.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Like, you know, hog maws and chicken and chitlins was, you know, cool and fun to talk about until, you know,
You develop that high blood pressure or
That's
something,
it.
you know.
exactly. And it ain't nothing nice as it is. So when you add a
Yeah.
complication like COVID to it, then you know, the African American community is definitely at a higher risk of mortality. You know,
Agreed. Also, to your point, like, shout out to people because, you know, there are kids and students that being in school is their only way to eat a meal a day. So shout out to the people who are still going up to the schools and delivering food for the students.
All
So,
those essential businesses, you know,
Yeah.
that stay open, like me working at Walmart.
yeah, yes.
man.
Yeah, like all of us who are still out there basically on the front lines. You know, during my shifts, I always got people who walked up to me and was all, you know, thank you for your service and everything. And I'm like, I ain't never been in the military. Like, what are y'all talking about? You know, but it's like, it took me a minute, and it took like a lot of people explaining it to me that no, it's like people are actually appreciative of just like us being out here still able to basically keep the economy flowing, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
Which is a huge thing right now. Is our economy is the one that's like taking a big hit. But another thing is, you know, like I'm learning that a lot of areas are actually doing better with us being in quarantine. You know, like I don't know if you guys have read the reports, but like the smog over LA is actually like almost gone.
Yeah.
Like you see a lot of like there are dolphins in Italy now because the water is actually clearing up because like, you know, we're not there polluting it, you know.
Right.
So it's like it makes you look at it like, did the world need a break from us? You know,
Right.
Like, is that why this is here? Like, what's really going on?
Well,
you
trust
know?
and believe, the world definitely need a break from us.
Right.
You know, I've my mind is wild and imaginative, and I've always thought like, you know what, you know, not Americans, but just humans in general, we are the ones poisoning the earth. We are the ones, you know, ruining the quality. I mean, you're talking about we have to have food where you actually put a sticker on it that says non-GMO.
Yeah.
Like, we live in a world where you can't necessarily trust what you eat to not have chemicals in it, you know, or to not have something that's genetically modified. So,
Right.
like, you know, humans and our greed and just the ways that we are, we don't really care about the ecosystem. And so, you know, yeah, we definitely are going to notice like this is almost like a recession for mankind, but a stimulus for the ecosystem.
Yeah.
You know, I ain't saying that we're going to be going through this long enough to like revive our forests and
Yeah,
all of that
and
mess,
actually
but
make like a huge impact. I wanted to ask you guys, like, how do you feel? So, like, there have been a lot of people online who are saying that after this whole experience, like, oh, we should probably, you know, do this once a month, every single year, like, just everyone, you know, stay from outside and just quarantine themselves to let the world heal. Like, I want to ask, like, your thoughts on that.
Yeah, but the problem is that people aren't staying home and quarantining. Like,
Right,
you know what I'm saying? So I don't even think that that's feasible. It would be nice in a nice fantasy world to be able to do that, to see all these great results with the world. But the problem is that people are not doing that even today.
Yeah.
And I don't think that people will do it, to be quite honest. Like, even if we did say let's shut down for another month or another 2 months, like, people are still very much going to go outside. There's girls in my complex that's still going to the pool. Like, people are still going to live their life regardless.
Yeah.
That's what I think.
yeah, I agree. Unfortunately, we are our own worst enemy. Like we're too greedy and self-centered as a race. And I'm not talking about like racially, like I'm talking about as a human race. We're too greedy and self-centered to actually operate in our own best interest.
Right.
Like hearing about the ozone layer and, you know, the fact that, you know, it was damaged didn't stop people from using, you know, hairspray and whatever other things that people
Driving
were
the
saying.
vehicles and stuff.
Yeah, like we're never going to stop driving or using oil or any of those things because as long as our lives get to be, as long as we get to have the comforts and the just the accessibility to, easier living, we're never going to give that up in exchange for a better world.
Right.
Like
Right.
we ain't gonna switch from cars to going back to horse and buggies.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no. And the funny thing is like I actually heard like this really great quote from a movie I watched earlier, but it's like people don't care how things work as long as it works.
Yeah.
And
Right. Ooh.
I think that goes straight into this, like we recognize the problems around our planet, but like we don't really care as long as it's not immediately affecting us.
Right.
So,
Like as long as people aren't dying by the thousands,
Mm-hmm.
it's just like, oh, we'll let the next generation deal with it.
Yeah.
And like you can't think like that because if you want your generation to continue, you have to be doing stuff now.
Mm-hmm.
exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking along the lines of people not caring, did you hear the message from that bus driver in Detroit?
No.
His whole message was basically that people don't care. Like this lady got on the bus. Matter of fact, I'm gonna just go ahead and play it. Like dude was hot mad, and he had a reason to be. He was on the bus, and he was driving the bus, and a woman got on. I'm gonna just go ahead and play it and let him just tell it.
Right. Let me hear
This
this.
coronavirus shit is for real. And we out here as public workers doing our job, trying to make an honest living, to take care of our families. But for you to get on the bus and stand on the bus
He got tears in his eyes.
and cough several times without covering up your mouth, and you know that we in the middle of a pandemic, that lets me know that some folks don't care, utterly don't give a fuck. Excuse my language, but that's how I feel right about now. For a grown ass person in her late 50s, early 60s to stand on the fucking bus and cough 4 and 5 times without covering up your mouth, and you know we in the midst of a motherfucking crisis with this coronavirus, I am pissed the fuck off. I ain't blaming nobody. I ain't blaming nobody but the woman that did that shit. I ain't putting the fault on nobody else. For us to get through this and get over this, man, y'all need to take this shit serious. It's folks dying from this. Listen, it's folks dying out here because of this shit. And I don't mean, listen, I'm mad right about now because that shit was uncalled for. And I'm trying to be the professional that they want me to be. And I kept my mouth closed. All right, thank you. I kept my mouth closed. But it's at some point in time where you got to draw the line and say enough is enough. That shit was uncalled for. I feel violated. I feel violated for the folks that was on the bus when this happened. It was about
Little
So-
Red Riding Hood.
so,
Let's
like-
start the story.
And the sad part about that is that 9 days later, that man died.
Oh, that's who that was?
Yes.
That man died, 9 days later. And that's the strength of this virus. And I feel like if ever there was going to be a wake up call to get people to try to start to pay attention to accurate information, focus on accurate. Like, like there's a lot of conspiracy theories floating around, and people just so interested in like having something to say right now. It just seems like, a million different theories. And I think it's okay to think outside the box. But while you thinking outside the box and basically just making shit up, people are in real life dying.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like that man really drove the DOT bus in Detroit.
Right.
And to think that his concern, that some people, they think, oh, you know what, you just oh, you just overreacting.
Mm-hmm.
You know, oh, it ain't that big a deal. Oh, it ain't all of that. It don't take all of that. It's like, you know what though? Now this man 9 days later,
Mm-hmm.
you're dead. And he has a wife and children, and they went and made a video as well trying to warn people. And that's the thing about a warning. A warning is never as bad as what happens if you don't heed the warning.
Right.
You know, and so right now it's almost like you were saying, like people don't care until it's them. And
Right.
unfortunately it's that mentality. Like we have to think in terms of you are me and I am you.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Because if you don't think that the other person is basically another extension of yourself, like we're all a
Okay.
life form.
Yeah.
And if we don't look at all life forms as another extension of ourselves, because we're all having to breathe the same air, we all got to drink the same water,
Mm-hmm.
we all have to be under the same sun,
Right.
and we have to start thinking in terms of empathy and compassion for all living things, because thinking that somebody else is different than you and what's going on with them don't impact you is what's spreading the virus. It's that
Absolutely.
mentality that's spreading it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, the funny thing is, like, I have this one friend who, and I'm not even gonna say her name, but like, I FaceTimed her and I saw that she was out like at a store or something, just around people. And I asked her, I'm like, well, what are you doing? Like, you supposed to be quarantined. Like, you ain't supposed to be out. You're supposed to be at home. And like, her first thing was like, well, I'm not gonna stay home because that's boring. And it's like, it ain't about being boring. It's about like,
You want to be
protecting
bored or die,
yourself,
right?
Like, and protecting people around you. Like,
Right.
a lot of people, they look at it as like, well, I'm not gonna catch it because it doesn't affect young people, and that's the type of stuff that I'm dealing with, because a lot of people that are around my age, like, were young.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is, it's like, it's not just about you getting it; it's about you catching it and then bringing it home to somebody else that
Correct.
you care about. Your loved ones. And to me, that just seems a little selfish, because it's like you're not caring about them; you're just caring about yourself.
Right.
And you may not get it, but they might get it, and it may be detrimental to them. And then what you
Right.
gonna do then?
Right. Because everybody's immune system is different. And I
Right.
think that was the biggest myth.
Everybody is different.
Absolutely. And that was the biggest myth when the whole COVID-19 thing started. It was like, this is a Chinese virus. It came from China. The more melanin you have, then the less likely it is for you to get it. And now
Right.
we're seeing all these trends. To Vaughn's point, when we were talking earlier, that Trump basically said that African Americans have the highest rate. Like, we're getting this at a high rate. And it's not just people that are in their 50s and 60s that are black people. It's people our age that are
Right.
getting the virus too. So let's talk about that, like some of these big myths that are attached to COVID-19.
You definitely hit the nail on the head, because I remember having conversations with cats early on. You know what I'm saying? Hold on a second. I almost canceled my life. Yeah, early on, I was having conversations with cats like, yo, did y'all get your face masks, and did you get your gloves and your hand sanitizer, man? Y'all better get that stuff quick. And cats was looking at me like I was crazy. They were like, no, black people don't get, black people not gonna get this, okay? You notice that most of the people that's getting this is Europeans. And I'm like, but we can get it. No, bro. I'm like, why not? One word. Melanin.
Right.
Man, I really think that some people just, yes, black is beautiful. Black is great. I don't want to be any other race than black. We the shits. But we cannot say that we immune to everything because we got melanin.
Right.
Like, what you mean? We ain't immune to diabetes,
Right.
high blood pressure, hypertension,
Right.
heart disease, glaucoma.
Right.
We ain't asthma, like sickle cell.
Right. Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, we ain't immune to none of the rest of that stuff. But all of a sudden, with this new mutation of an old virus, and we just know because some cousin at the barbershop told us that, oh yeah, we got melanin. And I get it. At first, like, the African countries really weren't experiencing it like it was happening in China, and then it was moving over to Europe, and you know what I'm saying? So it wasn't really happening in Africa, and I think that people just jumped the gun with misinformation. And quite frankly, I feel like we don't do that only with COVID. We do that with a lot of things. Like if
Yeah.
something, if some information doesn't fit into the box of what we've already decided is true or what we have accepted from a trusted source as true, we just run with it like it's facts.
Mhm.
I pondered this last night. I was in the shower where it just kind of like came like a light bulb. I'm like, yo, man, like we don't learn history in chronological order.
Man,
We
for real.
we learn history. We learn history according to the predisposition and the predispensation of information, the way that is normally dispensed in that particular community. And so you might you finding out that you're getting bits and pieces of information, and you think that's the whole entirety of the information that there is to get. And then you find out later on, oh, wait a minute, this story is regurgitated from another story that came thousands of years before it. And then it's like this surprising moment, or this, what do you do with that information type of moment. So it's like, it's almost like we just do this in the black community. We find some, we hear some information from a trusted source, and then with doing no research, we go with it like it's facts, and we spread the information like we know what we talk. Like, I ain't never heard a person speak more confidently than a black man at the barbershop.
Man, like, for real.
I'm talking about they will bet money on their facts.
Yep.
They will get loud about their facts, and depending on who it is, they might fight you over their opinion.
Man, let me finish up this cut real quick. I'm gonna see you outside, cuz.
Right. Like, man, the stuff we run with, the misinformation, and then think about how irresponsible that is.
Sure.
To go and to tell misinformation to your kids,
Yeah.
to tell misinformation to your uncle or your daddy or your grandfather. They say that if you want to hide information from a black man, put it in a book.
Right.
Man, that's, first of all, that's a real fucked up sentiment, but the fact that we tend not to do our own research, it makes us very easy targets for misinformation, and misinformation will be your undoing, because we carry out our lives based off of the information that we receive, and more so the information that we believe.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So the most important thing about a man to me is what that man believes. And if you believe that you can't die from COVID because you have melanin, then you won't take the steps that the health professionals and that the scientists are saying to take, which is so dangerous. That's why in Detroit, black people make up, I believe it's like what, 18% of the population in the state of Michigan. I'm sorry, not in Detroit. In the state of Michigan, I think we make up like 18 to 20% of the population, but like 44% of the people who have died from COVID. What?
So why do you guys think that there's such a high rate of African Americans contracting this disease?
The spread of misinformation, the acceptance of misinformation, and then also the socioeconomic disparity. We can't always afford to take the time off work.
Yep. You know, having being that a lot of the black culture makes up most of the low income, like class in America, a lot of us don't have that like good of healthcare,
Right.
A lot of us don't have the money. I mean, like, just to get, which actually leads into another topic, but like a lot of these famous people are getting tested.
Famous people.
And it's like they have the money to get tested.
Right.
But it's like, are they really the ones that need to be tested right now? Because most of them almost kind of know that they don't have it, but they're just doing it just to be sure.
Yeah.
But it's like, what about, like us, lower class, like middle class people who don't have the money, who don't have the means? We're not getting tested, but we're the ones that are primarily are going to be passing it around.
And dying from it.
Right.
I think also to that point is that the facts of, most people, they're saying that the hospitals won't even test you unless you have like extreme conditions and symptoms. So you're telling me that I have to almost be dying.
Right. You got to be halfway dead just
in
for us
order
to
for you to get test me.
But
right.
At that point, it's like it's already confirmed because I'm almost dead.
Right.
Exactly. So, and I, man, y'all bring up a great point. Like, it's so messed up. It's so messed up that the president I bet he got tested. I ain't gonna say I bet. I know it because he said it. You know, he got tested. And I'm not saying that the person who's at the top of the country's leadership hierarchy should not be tested. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that, you know, a good captain go down with the ship. And for you to think that it was important for you to get tested, but not do everything in your actual power to get tests to the people who, you know, are under your leadership, that's to me, that's damn near criminal.
Right.
It's damn near criminal, and especially in a country where you can't tell me that we could not afford to develop the tests and to pay even the private sector to develop the tests more quickly, because again, when it came down to his life, I mean, what, President Trump is in his 70s. When it came down,
is he?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he like 72, 73, something like that.
Man is old.
But he's a billionaire, so he don't have to look like Bernie Sanders walking around with a hunch in his back.
Right.
He doesn't have to look like an orange either.
Well, that's
that's a choice.
Oh my God! Why you do that to that man?
Oh
why he
my
do that to
goodness.
himself? Dang,
Right.
why you bake him like that?
I'm just saying.
He baked himself though.
Dang, he
I
just
never
roasted the
thought
president.
we would go from a black president
To an orange one.
Oh my God! It's a great
Inclusion.
great pumpkin looking at. Yo, man, yeah, but no, him. You know, he made sure that he was tested, and I just think that you know, instead of sitting up arguing with states about what they should have done or what they should do, or trying to undo everything President Obama did, you know, he should have been making it a priority to get every American tested, you know, and at no expense to them. You know, I mean, it's not like you're not making enough in taxes. Come on, cuz you talking about we can go to war. I found out that we was spending $383 million per day, every day, since the time that we started occupying Iraq and Afghanistan, all the way up until we finally started pulling troops out, which wasn't until, when did we start pulling troops out? I want to say it was like within the last 3 years or so. We started like finally going, okay, we're going to pull troops. You know, and I'm like, what? We was occupying that at a rate. We was occupying those places at a rate of $383 million daily for over a decade.
For what?
Man, but I mean, I guess my point is that we got the money. When it comes time for war, nobody asks questions like, "Oh, well, where we're gonna get the money from?
Yeah.
How are we gonna do this?" This is
Right.
like, "Oh no,
Do
we're
it.
going to war.
Yeah.
Let's create let's create a $6 billion jet
Mhm.
and then fly over there as quick as we can. Like
Right.
it's no problem when it comes down to war."
Right. So we've spent time talking about like famous people getting tested. We've talked about the president getting tested, and then people like ourselves that maybe can or cannot get tested depending on the symptoms. But, you know, just spending a large amount of time talking about people who actually have options on going outside or not. But what about the prisoners who do not have options to go outside and how COVID-19 affects them directly?
Yeah, because I know, Vaughn, you were saying that you have somebody.
Yeah, so you know, it is definitely a hard situation, you know, because most people, if you don't have a loved one that is in prison, then you don't think about the in prison.
Right.
They're basically just people who, you know, they're criminals. So who cares what happens to them?
Yeah.
They're
But
the scum of the earth, apparently.
Right. They're where they need to
exactly,
be.
but we can't look at the incarcerated people or prisoners as simply criminals, because then that takes away the human aspect of it.
Mhm.
These are human beings. These are people who have made choices that, you know, have caused them to be, you know, locked up. But being locked up should not take away basic human rights.
Right, because I mean, like, you don't look at a bad child and say like, oh, like he's not a human because he did something and you grounded him. I mean, it's the same thing. It's just for adults. But when we were actually talking about this a couple days ago, you brought up something that I actually didn't even realize about, like, how prisoners are basically still treated like slaves. You know, like a lot of their rights are taken away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
We literally saw something about a Mississippi prison, and one of the inmates had obviously probably a smuggled in phone, and he was taking video footage of the actual cells and just, you know, the conditions of the prison in and of itself. And I remember just looking at it, and I'm like, it is disgusting in there. You know what I'm saying? And the one track mind thinks like, okay, well, they're already quarantined, they're in prison, so they're not gonna get it. But you're not thinking about the nurses that come in and out of the prisons, the guards that come in and out of the prison, and their contact with outside life, and the potential of them now bringing it in to prisoners who are quarantined, and now the spread of that within the prison. You know what I'm saying? And now people are getting sick, and do they have the adequate things that they need to be treated for COVID-19? So now you're essentially putting a death sentence on people that are in prison.
Yeah, absolutely. Shoot, I wanted to bring up that video just to show like a short clip of that, but nobody on the podcast gonna actually be able to see it. But what I'm looking at, just in case you're on the podcast listening, what I'm looking at is a video on ABC News on YouTube, and it's called "We Need Help: Alabama Prisoner Pleads for Assistance in Fighting COVID-19." And the images that he shows with this camera that he, again, more than likely illegally obtained,
you know how you
he showed us a glimpse, because everybody knows ain't nobody gonna whenever the prisons, how can I say this? Prison is kind of like one of them places where, you know, people, it's like the parents who only clean up with company coming over. You know what I'm saying? they know that if they invite the news media in, they'll have time to clean everything up and make everything look pristine, and, you know, make everything look like everything is okay. But the kids who live at that house know, this house do not be looking like this when company not over here. And so it's kind of like what it is for the inmates. They get a chance to see what it's really like in there. And because they are inmates, because they are prisoners, and they're in a self-contained system, which is the prison system, nobody can really verify inmates' claims unless inmates have something like a phone and they can record it. So, like, I'm just kind of showing my viewers real quick. Hold on.
The footage.
Just a minute or two of it, not the whole.
Called for the transfer of inmates most vulnerable
not the whole
to confinement, beginning with federal facilities in Ohio, Connecticut, and Louisiana, where 5 inmates have already died from the virus. And now there are new cries for help from one of the nation's most overcrowded state prison systems. ABC News has obtained exclusive video from inside the Alabama prisons. Take a look.
It's going to be a mass grave site up in these prisons.
This is a dormitory.
Look at how crowded that is.
Stupid crowded, we super crowded. Now, as you see, the folk walking down the aisle, and they got to turn and see, that aisle is too small. It is way, way too small. These are the beds. They right beside each other, and this is the space.
It ain't 2 feet between. It ain't 3 feet between them beds.
That's how close we are. See, these are the people that they should be letting go due to the coronavirus. What in the world can this man do?
The sinks are very outdated. We cannot wash our hands simultaneously at the same time. You know, my thing to the outside world is help. Help for the overcrowding, help for sanitary purposes, help for a release mechanism. We need to release some of these people. We need help.
Nah, that's all I'm gonna show, because I don't want to be, you know, spending too much time on that. But notice that the man wasn't even saying, "Yo, man, get me up out of here, release me."
Right.
He was putting the camera on an elderly man who was in a wheelchair, who was slumped over, and he was like, "Yo, man, people like this, like, what can this man do?" In other words, what he's saying is that what this man gonna go and do with society? He in a wheelchair. He ain't about to rob no bank. He ain't about to bust nobody upside the head and rape nobody. This man in a wheelchair, he's not serving a purpose that is helpful to the situation being in here. Let some of these people out of here. Create a release mechanism and to let some of these people out of here so that we can be safe. And it seems to me that he's not really concerned about getting a reduced sentence. He's concerned about, can we at least be hygienic and practice social distancing? But without that video, we would never know what was going on in there. Right. And so if you do have a loved one in there, it hits you harder. I do have a loved one who is currently incarcerated, and he's scheduled to be released in July. But think about how much it weighs on me to wonder about his safety in a crowded place like that, and to wonder if he's going to be like the bus driver who catch it one day and then 9 days later gone. Right. You know what I'm saying? Like,
my thing is, that's a risk just for them to be recording that, right?
Yeah,
absolutely,
yeah.
Absolutely. That man, if that man get caught with it, because they probably may recognize his voice or whatever the case might be. But if he get caught with it, they're going to probably add more time or take away some of the very limited privileges. So there's that. But the other thing is, you know, like you said, he was willing to risk that just to get the word out because that was more important. So, you know, there's a lot. And then again, you know, look at the rate of incarceration of black men. 6 out of 10 black men between the ages of 19 and 40 years old either have been to prison or will go to prison. 6 out of 10. So, and we already make up about, I'll say about 40, I think it's about 40%. Y'all can look up the numbers if you want to. It's about, but we make up, black men, about 40% of the inmate population. But we only make up about 6% of the total U.S. population.
Right,
so
right.
Something like COVID really impacts us in places like, you know, prison and in our regular everyday society because we have a lot of pre-existing conditions. You know, a lot of us don't like to go to the hospital. And maybe it ain't just we don't like to go. Maybe we don't like not having health insurance or not having adequate health insurance. Adequate access to affordable health care prevents a lot of black people from going in to the hospital. And so, you know, we got a joke in the black community. If you sick, pour some Tussin on it.
Man.
Post some, you know, take some Robitussin. We self-medicate in the black community.
Some orange juice, you know.
Right. Do something quick. Yeah. So we spend a lot of time just talking about how COVID-19 has affected the community, how it's affected prisoners. But what about how it's affected us directly as creatives? So I know for me, being an actress, you know, I had a lot of auditions that were lined up, you know, amid the whole virus spreading, and then they instantaneously got shut down because now we're talking about social distancing and we don't want to get anybody else infected, so on and so forth. So it's left a lot of creatives without work because we can't have the public gatherings of so many people. So how has it affected you guys directly?
Well, I know for me, like, so I'm in the film industry, and I actually had 2 projects that were lined up that I was supposed to actually go to LA to work on that have now been pushed back. Well, LA and St. Louis. And, like, they've been pushed back now, you know? And now it's like I got to sit and wait. And one of them was my own personal project. Another one was actually paid. So it's like I'm losing out, like, on both ways.
Ends,
And I have friends that travel out of the country to work on films who are now stuck in those countries right now. Like, they can't get back home to their loved ones because of what's happening. Because, you know, like, there's no traveling in and out of the country. I have one friend who was in China when this whole thing started, and now he's stuck out there. You know, he can't even get back. So it's like,
that's horrible.
That is awful.
You know, and to go back to, like, what you were saying about, like, public gatherings, like, a lot of the movie theaters are being affected, you know, because, like, you know, we can't have public gatherings, and that's affecting their little economy, and it's just like, it's just all trickling down in the film industry. Like, everyone is being hurt some way or another just by us just staying home.
Man. Well, you know, you guys y'all know what I do, so it's pretty much just an echo.
So what do you do? Because some people tuned in might not know what you do.
Yeah, you know, I'm a full-time performer. I'm a singer. You know, I run a band. I run and operate Swift Music Entertainment LLC, and that's my entire life. You know, I went, you know, I've spent the last 10 years developing, you know, my brand, and you know, trying to do what I can to do what I love full time. You know, and I was inspired by my father. He's also a full time musician, and so you know, I've watched him transition out of corporate America into, you know, doing you know, what he believes is his calling, you know. And like I was telling somebody before, like, you know, I'm not a musician, I'm music. If I didn't play, if I didn't get paid to do a single gig, I'd be around the house humming melodies. Why? Because not because I just love the sound of my own voice, it's because my mind just spontaneously thinks melodies, and they just come to me, and I echo what I hear on the inside, what I feel on the inside. And so just today, I mean, aside from the fact that as of March 15th, I was basically effectively put out of business, right? and hadn't really been able to turn, you know, any income aside from the donations of the people from my Facebook and my Instagram. I go live on those platforms on Friday nights at 7:00. Shameless plug. And so, you know, I'm basically living off of people's donations right now. And that's a hard place to be in when you are a hustler and you have worked to make yourself self-sufficient, to go to a place where you're relegated back to begging. Because I used to street perform. And yesterday I went back and I started street performing again, because what else can I do? You know what I'm saying? And right now, they're saying that the self-employed are not eligible for unemployment benefits yet. We have to apply for the pandemic uninsurance benefits. And unfortunately, that application isn't even live yet. I can't even fill it out yet. So my hands are tied. I'm watching hours and days of potential productivity just go by with my hands tied, and ain't nothing I can do about it. And then what? Today, I get a message from a client who booked me, you know, for a birthday party. And normally, you know, deposits for my, normally deposits are non-refundable for my events. But for COVID, I didn't feel like it was really, you know, ethical to keep that in place. So, you know, $1,000 deposit that was already just kind of like sitting in the business account, I have to refund that money back to him, because it's not like he can, like, you know, redo this birthday for his loved one. Your birthday is your birthday. Once it's passed, it's over. So, you know, I'm not making money and I'm losing money. And so, you know, it's just it's a devastating time for small businesses, the self-employed, the artists, the promoters, you know, everybody who relies on social gatherings for their income. This is a bad time. This is a bad time.
Yeah, I was actually talking to a friend, and thanks for that shameless plug. So for those of you that, you know, have still been blessed to have jobs, like I'm a little different. I, in addition to being an actress, have a full-time job that I'm still blessed to have. So one of the things that I've been doing, and something I talked to my manager about, is because we are blessed to still have our jobs, we have been blessing small businesses or, you know, entrepreneurs like Vaughn, you know, that go live on a weekly basis or bi-weekly or whatever the case may be. So I know my manager was saying, like, he can't get his hair cut right now. So what he does is he basically paid his barber for advance appointments so that they're not missing out on money. So that's another good idea, you know, to at least help people out that are not generating money right now in this crisis. So I think, go ahead.
Sorry, no. One of the people on my page actually made a comment. So after you get done, I want to respond to her comment.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
So Mia Valdez, first of all, thank you for just tuning in. But Mia Valdez on my Facebook said that it's not that everyone couldn't be tested by. She said that by the time this country realized we were knee deep. So I think what she's saying is that it's not that everybody in the country couldn't be tested. It's that we didn't realize it soon enough to be able to get everybody tested. That by the time we realized it, that we were knee deep. And I have to.
In addition to that, I don't think it's just like realizing it. We actually had a president that wasn't taking it seriously at first on the onset. So let's start there.
That was definitely the direction that I was going with that. It's like, I would love to just be able to agree with you, Mia, but I can't agree with you because the thing is that the precedent was already set by other countries. China had already been going through this.
Correct.
Then it was over in Iran and Italy, and the writing was on the wall. The president knew about this, but he didn't take it seriously. Now, how do I know he knew about it? Well, first of all, there's multiple interviews where he downplayed the seriousness of it at the early onset. Since January, he's been talking about, coronavirus, and he talked about it like it was nothing. Meanwhile, other countries were bracing for the worst. They were locking down. They were quarantining people. They were shutting down travel. All kinds of what we would consider to be extreme measures. Those other countries were already taking them, and they had already seen this stuff happen first, number one. Number two, some of our U.S. senators who were a part of the same briefing as Donald Trump, when they heard about the coronavirus and its potential impact to our economy, they immediately dumped their stocks. 4 United States senators were caught selling all of their stocks, right? They were selling all of their stocks right after that briefing, and they're being investigated for it. So early on, they did have the information. It's not that they didn't have the information, it's that they didn't take the information seriously and that they were not honest with the American public. Because if they didn't think that it was serious, then they wouldn't have sold their stocks. And so they did what they needed to do to save themselves.
Sure.
Period. He knew about it. He didn't want to believe that America could potentially be, at his knees and crippled like the rest of the world. He treated it like we all got melanin and we all immune. And that's why the situation is as bad as it is. That's why New York didn't have a stockpile of ventilators, and that healthcare professionals didn't have masks even. He knew. Shoot, he knew.
Yeah. So, in current news, places like Vegas are set to reopen May 1st. So, how do you feel about businesses or things like Disneyland and Vegas and all of that choosing to reopen so soon? Will you be going to Vegas on May 1st?
First off, no.
Okay.
The thing is, even if we had stayed quarantined for 6 months, I still wouldn't feel comfortable going to public places at least for another 6 months.
Right.
Because it's like we staying quarantined only really stops the whole brunt of it happening. But there's still gonna be people here and there who still have it.
Right.
That there's still gonna be lingerers around the area. So it's to be we're just. To go from everything is open to then now nothing is open to then all of a sudden everything is open again. It's that's not how you do this. I really felt I feel one, when this thing first happened, to go back to what you were saying, our president didn't take it seriously enough. This should have been slowly quarantined when he was finding out about cases here in the U.S. We should have slowly quarantined, and then there should have been a month when literally everything was shut down. Unfortunately, we're not gonna be able to get stuff from Walmart or from anything, but it's that month would have saved us this prolonged problem that it's gonna unfortunately be now.
Sure. Yeah.
Because now it's gonna drag out, because now it's we're all trying to play catch up. We're just trying to do what we think seems right instead of the government didn't have a plan, and there should have been a plan that was set in place so that everything essentially went back to normal accordingly, and it would have been a smooth transition.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's not now, and that's what's gonna hurt us more than anything, more than this virus probably ever could.
Yeah, I absolutely agree, man. It's so foolish, and that's some of the rhetoric. Unfortunately, that goes back to the administration. It's some of the same rhetoric that he's been talking. I mean, in early and mid March, he's going, Americans, we want to get back to working. we want to get back to working, and people are tired of not working, and we need to reopen the country, and I think that we'll be able to open it by Easter. I think that we can open reopen the country by Easter. And he was just making like wild claims and giving people a false sense of hope.
Yeah.
And I understand the need to give people hope. I understand that. But people don't want, in a situation of life or death, people don't want false hope. People want accurate information.
Right.
Yeah.
Because that's the best way to protect yourself. And he was giving people false hope. And I think it was probably in response to some of the people in his cabinet who were close to him saying, President, this is your opportunity. You're going up for re-election. You need to give people hope. And what he did, instead of giving them accurate information to give them tools, he gave them lullabies to give them hope, saying things like, we're going to open the country up by Easter, or we've got this all under control, or this is a hoax by the Democrats because they don't want me to be able to be reelected. So this is just another hoax. He called this a hoax.
Yeah.
And then not only did he call it a hoax, but then, and before I say this, I want everybody to know I'm not about left or right, conservative or liberal.
Me either.
I'm very independent. I'm an independent thinker. And so, but I noticed that conservative media platforms, especially Fox, was out there calling this a hoax by the Democrats, saying that they were trying to blow it out of proportion and that it really wasn't this serious, and that the liberals are trying to fearmonger and trying to like just create panic,
Right.
when there was no reason to panic. And it's like, okay, so actually there was reason to panic. And now look at us. Now we're overwhelmed.
Right.
Yeah.
And the response is underwhelming.
Right.
The president loved, this is not really on the topic of what you guys just said, but the president loved talking about and bragging about how he doesn't accept a check for being a president.
Yeah.
Because I think they made like $400,000 a year.
Yeah.
But President Trump last time my check was worth $11 billion.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so for you to sit up and brag about how you don't collect a check because you just love America so much, but you didn't use one of those $11 billion to invest in the expedition of creating face masks and ventilators. I'm not saying that it was his job as the president to use his own personal money, but I'm just saying he made it so personal when he went.
But
when
show
he,
that you care.
Yeah, he made it so personal when he was like, "Oh, I don't even take a check. I don't get paid for this. I just do it because I love America." But you got $11 billion and you ain't spent none of it.
Right, on any of us. And like, so to go back to one of your earlier points, like about like believing in him, like one of my friends actually said something that like really just kind of opened up my eyes. And like he voted for Trump, but it's like he said something that was so true. Like he was like, the one thing I can honestly say about Obama is whenever Obama spoke, at least you knew it was truthful,
Yeah.
Like you believed him even when he like admitted something was wrong, or like he couldn't do something. At least you could believe him. And that's the problem with Trump today is just the fact of like when he speaks, half of the audience believes him, which is his diehard fans.
Right.
But
Right.
the other half we just don't, and it's because the reason, like what you say is like there aren't facts, and it's like it almost feels like you're bragging about stuff.
Right.
We don't want a president who brags. We want a president who represents America, but who cares about its people,
Right.
And every time he speaks, it doesn't feel like he cares about its people. It feels like he just cares about America being successful, almost like he's running it like a business, because he's
that's what he
businessman.
does. Correct.
Yeah.
Yes. He's not a politician.
Right. And it's like America is its people, it's not a business. So you can't run it like a business. You have to run it based off of like how the people feel and what you see,
Yeah.
And I just feel like that's just not what he's doing.
Agreed.
He don't know what he's doing.
Right.
You're talking about somebody who, like, you just go back a few years and he was standing face to face with Stone Cold Steve Austin in a WWE match.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And this mother is the president.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So it's just like, golly, man. you know, Obama, you know, he did a lot of good, and then he did some things that were not so good. And he told a lot of truths, and then sometimes he didn't tell the truth. But I will say this: I do miss him right about now,
Right.
because at least he listened to scientists and people who were professionals in their jobs, like people who were experts in their fields. And you know, when Trump was asked specifically what he was using to gauge his responses to COVID, he says, "I'm using this." You know, they were like, but yes, but what are you using to gauge? Like, what metrics? He was like, the ones up here. And so he believes that he knows what's best. This is a guy who couldn't sell steak successfully. This was a guy who couldn't offer real estate education successfully.
Right.
Trump University. You know what I mean? This is a guy who tried to sell, you know, health pills to boost your immune system and all kinds of schemes and scams that didn't work. But he thinks that he knows. He even said, while standing in the midst of people who were doctors at the CDC, right? You know how brazenly arrogant you have to be to stand next to doctors and talk about how smart you are?
Yeah.
Like, this man stood there and said, you know, doctors have always wondered, like, why I'm so good at, you know, predicting things like this. And I just seem to have a really, what did he say? He said that he has a knack for medicine and healthcare professional information. Like, he stood there in the CDC and told them that if he wasn't the president, that he probably would have been a better doctor.
Ooh.
And I'm thinking to myself, like, bro, you need a better dermatologist.
Right.
All
You
of
need a
that.
better cosmetologist.
Yeah.
That's all-
You think
yeah.
you'd have been a better doctor?
Yeah, like you don't even know what color to freaking gauge the tanning salon on. So why in the world would I trust you in injecting something into me?
It's like on a toaster where it goes like light, medium, dark, more dark.
He put on the more dark. He's like, I think that's okay. I think that's okay.
Look, man, it's like, hey, I ain't gonna shit on that man. If he want to look like an Oompa Loompa, that's his business. He gonna go down as the president who was, you know, orangey orange.
Right.
You know.
So moving on from the small businesses, so we discuss how it's affecting Black people. We discuss how it's affecting prisoners.
Right.
We discuss how it's affecting small businesses, and we discuss the effect that it's having on us as creatives.
Right.
How do you guys feel like we are going to come out of this?
That is a great question.
Before we get to that, how do you think? What do you think is the best move for us to come out of this?
Well, it'd be nice if everyone would stay home and not be out here in these streets, understanding, like, you know, if you have to do essential shopping, you have to get your groceries, understood. But maybe if we rethink the way that we do things, like maybe having your groceries delivered as opposed to going to these big public places to go shop, which is unfortunate because then it has another effect that those people that are working at Walmart or Target, now maybe their hours are getting reduced because there's not a need for them to be there if people are essentially having groceries delivered. But I think taking steps and measures like that will help, because now we're not all out in the streets getting diseases and then passing it around to all of our loved ones, and then it just continues to spread. So I think that that's one of the best ways to get ahead of it, so that, because I just really want to see people again. I'm tired of being stuck in my house following the rules while everybody else is partying. Like, I know somebody posted a video on Facebook of people in Detroit, like young kids just out on the street, like having block parties, and, you know, people still going to the clubs and doing it. Like, what are we doing here? Like, you know, so I think taking those measures and discontinuing to do that kind of stuff is a great way to come out of this.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I also think that in addition to that, we need to follow the advice of healthcare professionals.
Yes.
Follow the advice of the healthcare professionals. Wash your hands well. You know, use the hand sanitizer lotion if you have to be out in public. put on the face mask.
Wash your hands well. Not to interrupt you, but can you please help people out? Because some people feel that if you just run your hands under warm water, then your hands are clean.
You
And
want to
so,
give a step by step.
yes, I would like for you to get. No, I'm serious. I think we need a step by step on what is washing your hands. And also, my friend Tasha's online, who is a nurse. If you want to go on and even write a comment and post some step by steps on washing your hands thoroughly, that'd be great. But Vaughn, yes, please tell us your definition of washing your hands so people understand.
You know, along the lines of what the healthcare professionals have said, you know, wash your hands for at least 20 seconds. If you can't count to 20, in Mississippi's, you know, one Mississippi, two Mississippi, then they say sing happy birthday twice while you washing your hands. Use soap, preferably, you know, I mean, they say use an antibacterial soap, but any, you know, hand soap will do.
Yeah.
You know, dry your hands off and, you know, get back to business as usual.
Don't touch the door when you walk out. Maybe use your paper towel to open the door.
Yeah, don't touch surfaces. You know, understand that understand something about the virus. Like, we ain't doctors, but you know, if they're telling us some of this information and posting it everywhere, they're saying that the virus can live on surfaces like, you know, steel or, you know, metal for days, you know, at a time. And so to make sure that you wipe down surfaces like that, if you have to go to work or you have to be, you know, at a computer in a work environment like that, you should be wiping your station down with Lysol wipes, you know, every day. Like, and if you know, if you cough for whatever reason, like, don't cough inside your hand, cough inside your elbow or inside of your shirt. Like, you know, this stuff should be common sense, but people nasty. You know.
Speaking of nasty, I just want us. Okay, the show shall remain nameless, even though people watching probably know what show I'm about to talk about. But I was looking at a show, and one of the hosts was talking about her opinions on washing her hands when she's at home. And so you guys can tell me what your thoughts are on this. And she basically said that if she's not taking a number 2 at home, she doesn't wash her hands after the bathroom, and she doesn't see anything wrong with that because she cleans her house. So what are your opinions on somebody choosing to go to the bathroom at home and not wash their hands after they're done using the bathroom? We'll start with you, Anthony. This is real life. I'm not even joking. I'm not even joking. This is real life. A celebrity said this. Oh, it was on The View. So we'll just say that. I won't say who the person is because you guys can look it up. But it was on The View, and she said she doesn't wash her hands at home if she's taking a number 1 because she cleans her house.
Because if I ever meet her, I would like to not shake her hand.
We definitely gonna have a separate conversation after the mics are away. But no, you can't do that.
Yeah. Probably not eating dinner over her house, huh?
Yeah, or, you know, like, getting an autograph from her at all.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to need to know, did you just use the number 1 recently? Because if so.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, how could she... Go ahead, bro.
I mean, like, you know, and it's not even just her. Like, there's a lot of people who don't do, like, simple stuff, you know, because they just don't think it makes sense. Like, I know a lot of people who don't lace public bathrooms. Like, if you want to sit on a public toilet, I don't understand why you wouldn't lace it, you know, but that's just me.
They some brave souls.
Yeah.
Look here.
Yeah.
I ain't doing it.
I'm just sitting on the toilet.
There's a fine line between brave and stupid.
And nasty. Let's just talk about that. This virus has shown us who's nasty. That's what I think.
Oh, yeah, it's definitely exposing a lot of people. I mean, I just don't understand what world you come from where if you have made contact with your private parts that you don't think you need to wash your hands. Now, you know what I'm saying? I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. I wasn't raised like that where, you know, where you touch your private parts.
So that's the thing, though. If she, in her mind, and I am not defending this. I just want to start there. I wash my hands, okay? But essentially, people might feel like I don't touch my private area. I'm touching the toilet paper that is, you know, that I'm wiping with, and that's not direct contact with that area, so there's not a need for me to wash my hands. Again, I do not agree with that. I thoroughly wash my hands every time I go into the bathroom. But apparently there are some people that do not believe that after taking a number one, they need to wash their hands. So to all my nurses, because now Ash is in here, so to Ashley, to Tasha, tell us your opinions. Should people be washing their hands? I probably shouldn't do that. Should people be washing their hands after taking number ones and twos?
My whole thing is
Why both of y'all like, man, listen.
Because waste of airtime.
No, I just because there might be people tuned in that agree with this notion that if I'm at home and if I live by myself, for example, and I'm not touching other people or whatever, I'm not coming in contact with people, that I don't need to wash my hands after number one or two.
Feel like if that's your opinion though, and you the only one at your house, like, hey, you can keep that opinion to yourself because it only affects you. Don't be out there spreading that to other people, though.
So let me tell you what my nurses said. My friend Tasha said, remember, COVID is really respiratory more than anything. And my other nurse friend Ashley said, wash all damn hands, period. With a T. Like, wash your
Exactly.
Because my whole thing is, like, she over here thinking, like, oh, just because I'm touching the tissue and not the actual thing, that should be safe. But, I mean, I'm pretty sure we've all put a tissue on a wet surface and have been able to feel it on the other side.
Common sense.
On the other side of the tissue.
Right.
Hello on the
Other side. Right.
Got doodle, look, man, got doodle on your fingers.
That's really disgusting.
That's nasty.
But, I mean, to that point, like, think about how many times at your job your coworkers say, let's have a potluck. Right?
It makes you wonder.
It makes you wonder because...
But you can't, though, because it's like, if you do, like, you're not going to want to touch anything. Like,
and this is the part where being religious really helps people, because then you get to pray and just, eat with this sense of security. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, oh, Lord, please help us, because we know that Beverly just made this doggone,
Right. Like, what a lot of people don't even realize, too, is, like, how many germs come from just the toilet alone.
Yes.
Like one thing that I actually learned a couple years back is, like, your toothbrush actually can have traces of fecal matter on the bristles when you flush the toilet.
Oh, right. But so if it's by the toilet, then it comes up. Right. That's why you shouldn't have it by the toilet.
That right there should already tell you. If you can just sit your toothbrush on the counter and it can get traces of it, why would you think that your fingers wouldn't get it from you wiping?
Now, for those of you who do not know what fecal matter is, fecal matter is what is known as
poop.
Doo-doo
Fecal
in
is poop.
the community.
Yeah.
Just to let y'all know.
Doo-doo, dookie, BM, poop. All of that
fecal matter
is considered fecal.
He's talking about dukes.
So Tasha said shaking hands to greet someone will not be forever changed. That part. So my full-time job, I am essentially a university recruiter, and a large part of my job when I go on campus is to recruit students for internships, is to shake students' hands. And I remember going to a university, and the rumor was that there was a student on campus that recently came back from China and had COVID-19. So, like, we're literally at the career fair, like, okay, how can we do this? Like, maybe hold some pens in our hands, and understanding that when you're at an event like that, it is very hard not to shake students' hands. They're coming up, they want a job, they want to be professional, and so our alternative was we're going to have this batch full of this large sanitizer, and every time we shake hands, it's like, we're sanitizing our hands. But yes, Tasha, it will forever be changed. I think people will be less likely to want to shake hands because of things like this virus. So thank you for that.
Whew.
Yes, thank you for the emojis, Ashley. Fecal matter are the little cartoon pieces of poop that she has posted on there. That is what fecal matter is, in case you guys have questions as to what that is. And for future reference, maybe not have your toothbrush right by the toilet. Maybe on the other side of the sink where the splatter doesn't come up and touch your bristles.
They say to, like, keep it in, like, a cup of mouthwash.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's actually something that
to disinfect it.
Yeah.
Maybe even have like a little case over it, like the toothbrush covering.
Well, I mean, I don't know about those because, like, think about it. Like, you just get the toothbrush out of your mouth, so it's already got, like, all of your saliva and stuff on there, and then, like, you put it in the case, which is gonna keep it like it's gonna keep all of the humidity in there.
But some of them have the little holes in it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, those are the ones I'm talking about. I do know the ones you're talking about. Probably not
Yeah.
those ones, but some of them have it where, you know, it is breathable so that it dries and it's
Right.
not like containing all of that in there, because I know what you're saying. But
Yeah.
yeah. Well, this has been very informative. I think that, you know, I still would like for maybe Tasha and Ash or anybody else that's in the healthcare field to really list out for us the steps to washing your hands. People are laughing at me, but I'm being very serious because I think some people need to just know the proper steps to washing your hands. Oh, thank you, Mary. My friend Mary said keeping your toilet lid closed when flushing, and after also keep the bathroom door closed always. So that's a great way to prevent those types of bacteria from spreading as well. But so we've been an hour in. We're going to wrap it up, you guys. Please continue. We'll share the videos. Please continue to, you know, share your thoughts and your ideas, steps for washing your hands, steps for realizing that if you take toilet paper and wipe yourself, you still should wash your hands after.
Right.
Okay? All of that. We want to see all of that in the live. Did you guys have anything else, guys, before we log off?
No, well, actually, why don't we talk about, you know, like what we're wanting to do with the podcast going forward, and like just how,
Yeah,
you know,
for sure.
like what our viewers can expect. So, you know, the three of us actually wanted to start this podcast just because, you know, like we have interesting conversations, you know.
We do.
And we just feel like we're all like, hey, let's just record them, you know, and put them out there for people to hear. And so we're wanting to actually bring that to you guys and, you know, be more interactive and, like, you know, start having more smarter discussions and to show people that, hey, Black people can have intelligent conversations that are thoughtful, thought-provoking, and, you know, really educational. We want to bring facts to the table and everything, and actually teach each other something we may not even knew, and to teach people who listen, you know, new information.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
We'd like to actually start having this be a little bit more interactive, by having you guys send in questions and, you know, having us answer them on air, whatever we can try to do. We're actually doing a live right now while we're recording. We would like to continue to do that. We have social media.
Yes,
it's gonna be Life Around Us podcast on Instagram. We're gonna be creating a Facebook for it, so we can actually like have one central area so that everyone can actually tune in and follow and listen. Yeah, do you guys have anything else to add?
Follow us on Life Around Us on Instagram, as Anthony pointed out. That's going to be major because then you guys can keep up with our future topics that we're going to be talking about.
Yes.
Have we like firmly decided on our next topic? Should we announce that now, or do you guys want to wait?
No,
Okay, we're going to wait. We're going to keep it a secret until we get closer. But I'm telling y'all, like, you guys should really tune in because I didn't do a lot of talking. But I'm telling you right now, on the next one, I'm going to be talking a lot. Okay? Not I'm going to be. That's not very educated. I am going to be talking thoroughly about the next topic. I think you will all enjoy. So that's all I have to say. Did you have anything, Fawn, that you wanted to chime in and say?
No, I just wanted to thank everybody for tuning in. And, yeah, this is just something... We're going to just keep on having cool conversations. Hope you guys will join in and talk with us. So thank you guys very much. That's all I got to say.
Okay, so a couple of viewers, well, it's Jamie, asked if Vaughn can close with a song. And also Javon wanted me to remind you something about your beard is practicing social distancing. At any rate, Javon, we don't need your little comments. You could have kept that. Thank you so much. You can go back and read it because it's in the comments section.
Javon
we love you. You're so sweet, Javon.
Just to still end up looking like a pit bull.
Okay, thank you. So on that note, we appreciate you guys tuning in. Jamie he wants you to sing a song to close us out, Vaughn. Would you like to sing us a song, or is that an absolute no? I think that you should. The viewers tuned in, so why not bless them with a nice little song? He don't have a guitar or anything. Nothing. It's gonna be a cappella. Okay, well, how about...
You know what?
We are editing this, so like Vaughn will have.
He will
pop
have a
music,
song at the
yeah.
end when we really, post it for real. But
If I sing a song, I'm about to post my Cash App up, y'all.
well, hey, in the spirit of donating to those, who are in need, we could do that too. But no, we'll next time, Jamie. Next time. You hear Vaughn all the time, so next time we will. And if you would like to hear him sing a song, make sure you tune into his live on Friday, where you can donate as well. All right.
There was some more comments on mine.
Oh, okay.
That I apparently missed. Oh, dog, I missed a few comments, but I at least want to acknowledge them. We won't necessarily respond to them, but at least acknowledge them.
Well, we can definitely respond via commenting.
Okay.
And replying that way. And, make sure you guys go follow our page on Instagram, Life Around Us, because that is where essentially we'll be interacting with you guys during the podcast as well. So if you have questions, comments, all of that jazz.
Yeah.
Cool.
To my audience, guys, Life Around Us on Instagram. Just look up Life Around Us.
Yeah, and we would be remiss if we didn't shout out AJ. He's not, you don't see him on camera, but he is definitely behind the scenes helping us with the podcast. So shout out to Mr. King Entertainment, AJ Harrison, and Encore. All right, guys, so it's been an hour into the podcast, so we're going to go ahead and wrap it up. But, we thank you guys for tuning in, and we just want to mention really briefly our social media tags. So, Anthony, why don't you go ahead and shout out our social media tags so everybody can make sure to follow us for future podcasts.
Yes, so we will actually be on Instagram at Life Around Us Podcast. That's going to be Life Around Us Podcast, and we're going to be on Facebook as well. We want to actually try to do live streams while we are recording the podcast so we can better interact with you guys and get questions submitted to us and us answer them, whatever. We want to actually be connected to you guys, because our main purpose with the podcast was to basically share some knowledge, have a discussion, and be more educated. That's the big thing. Be more educated while having fun.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, y'all. Well, thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you guys on the next podcast. I'm telling you, you want to make sure that you are following us on our social media, because you'll want to be tuned in to hear this next topic. It'll be a surprise, but I'm telling you, it'll be worth the wait. So we'll see you guys the next time.